What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Joey, and today I'm going to be doing something new on the channel, and hopefully I'm going to continue to do it on the channel. I'm going to start my own podcast type thing, and it's going to be all about sports. So we're going to call it the Sportscast, Joey's Sportscast, whatever. I'm not sure if this is going to be a weekly thing or when there's big events that I just want to talk about. We'll see. But basically, I'm just going to run through a bunch of sports topics that are going on in the world, and then I'm just going to discuss them and give my opinion on them. And yeah, so I'm not sure the structure of this yet at all. So for right now, basically, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick three sports and talk about each of them a little bit in depth each week and then see how that goes. But we'll see what happens. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So I think that the first sport we should tackle today is college basketball because of all of the things that happened within the last week. So the first thing I want to talk about before we get into the major thing that people are probably focused on more is the Mississippi State and UConn game. This game was close throughout. Mississippi fought and fought and fought, and they pushed the game into overtime. And if you guys don't know, UConn had previously won 1100, or I'm sorry, not 1100, 111 straight games without losing. So that was like, I think 3 or 4 national championships, don't quote me on that, in a row. So basically, they fought and fought. Mississippi State got them into overtime, and this is when it got interesting because UConn has lost its previous 3 games in overtime, and that's quite a contradicting statistic, when there's 111 games that have just been won in a row, but they can't finish it off when it's in overtime. So that was really interesting. So this is when I tuned into the game, actually, because I'd been doing other things. But then once this game went into overtime, I was like, all right, I have to watch and see how this finished. So it was really, really close down the stretch. UConn would tie it, and then UConn would jump ahead, and then Mississippi State would come back, and they tied it, and it came down to Mississippi State had the ball with under like 10 seconds left, and they ran it down the court. The defender was in this girl's face, and she shot it up, and she somehow made it. And it was crazy. UConn lost. The upset was monumental, and it was just pure insanity because, UConn was a heavy favorite in this game because of the fact that they never lose. So having Mississippi State pull off this upset was crazy to say the least. And, that was great and all. And then apparently the women's championship game was on a Sunday. I never heard about it or anything, but they had to play South Carolina and they lost. So all that hard work, all this big hype, you beat UConn, you would feel like at that point you might as well just be given the title of winning the national championship, because if you beat a team that's been that good for that long, then why in the world would you have to play another game? So I personally feel like they're probably just worn down because they had to give it their all just to beat UConn. So when it came to having to face another team, then they didn't have anything left in them. So I'm not necessarily saying that South Carolina wasn't a good team. I just feel like if it came down to it and there were more time in between the games, I feel like Mississippi State would have, had a better chance. Because like I said, I feel like they had to use up all of their energy in order just to get through UConn, because UConn's a tough team, and you don't just win 111 games easily. I mean, if you're a good team, you have to play other good teams constantly who are also ranked. So it was a huge upset. I still think that Mississippi State should receive mad props for pulling off that feat, but I don't know. Alright, so the other thing that happened in college basketball was the men's bracket for the NCAA tournament, and it was crazy. It was honestly crazy. This entire tournament has been so much fun to watch. I think this is the most fun I've had watching a tournament in quite a couple of years, and I think a big part of that was there were a lot of good close games. My personal favorite games this year all have to deal with UConn, or not with UConn, with North Carolina. And this is because they had so many exciting games, but there were also so many things wrong with what they were doing that, it was like a love-hate relationship. So, in the game where it was UNC and Kentucky, that was a big game, because UNC and Kentucky are always going at it, blah, 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 just like UNC and Duke are always going at it. And the major thing is UNC was dominating. Like, dominating the entire game. UNC built up like an 8-point lead with a minute left, and it was looking like they would squeak by with an easy win. But shout out to Kentucky, because Kentucky came back and fought and fought and fought, came back from the 8-point deficit, tied the game up with this crazy shot. Like, they had been fouling, and Kentucky caused UNC to turn over the ball because they couldn't inbound it because they were being guarded so heavily, and then they scored, and then they blocked a shot, and then they scored again, and then I'm pretty sure it came down to UNC was winning by 3. So Kentucky took it down the court. Still had like 11 seconds left, and this kid posts up and gets ready to shoot, and I was like, why? You still have so much time. Why wouldn't you wait? And he made the shot despite having like 2 defenders in his face. So I was freaking out, alright? UNC didn't have any timeouts left, so then they inbound it, run it all the way down the court, passes it to another guy, and the dude posts up, shoots it, and wins. So UNC won, and all of this happened within a minute. And that last, 15 seconds was absolutely insane and fantastic, and it was one of my favorite finishes in sports. Besides, I think it could contest with the Mississippi State and UConn, because that moment is so big just because of the history behind it. But anyways, so that game was insane. UNC moves on to the Final Four, and in the Final Four, UNC had to play Oregon. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I watched this game, and it was a really tough game to watch, because the beginning of the game, nobody was making any shots, at all. And it was getting super, super irritating, because you were waiting for, these teams to show off why they deserved to, go to the national championship, and they weren't. They were both shooting awful, they were both turning it over a bunch, and it was a really bad game to watch until a little bit before half. And then the team started picking it up. But there's one person on UNC that I cannot stand at all. And it's not because I think, blah, 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 he's a bad person, whatever. It's the fact that on the court, what I've seen of him in the 3 games that I've watched of him this year, which are the Elite 8 game, the Final Four game, and then the National Championship game, is he's not a good player. And I would hate if my team drafted him, if he's going into the draft or whatever, if he's even on the board. God, I hope he's not, because his name is Joe Barry II. I know it's Barry II. I'm pretty sure his first name's Joe. He's number 2 on UNC. And I understand, blah, 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 he tweaked both of his ankles, he wasn't at 100%. But if you're not at 100%, that doesn't mean that you can make stupid plays. And this dude, I thought that UNC was going to end up losing, okay? Because at the end of the Oregon game, Oregon had 3 opportunities to win the game. And the reason UNC made it to the championship wasn't because UNC was more talented than Oregon. It was more the fact that Oregon could not deliver when it came down the stretch. Now, Meeks, number 3 on UNC, and what's his name, number 5, they had very good rebounds down the stretch to knock the ball back. But when it came down to it, Barry II was going to the line, and he needed to make his shots in order to, nail the dagger in and solidify UNC's win so they, so that Oregon couldn't come back and make a shot that could tie it or win the game. And he missed both of his first free throws. And the second one, I believe it was number 5, whatever his name is, the dude with the pink shoes, he got up and rebounded it back, so they had an offensive rebound, and then Barry got fouled again. So then Barry goes back to the foul line, misses the first one, it's like, okay, come on, dude, and then misses the second one. And then Meeks rebounds it back to him, and then at that point the game was over. But the only reason that they won that game was because of the other players. It wasn't ever because of Barry. Throughout the entire game, Barry made 1 shot. Maybe 2. But out of all of those 3-pointers that he shot up throughout the game, he only made 1. And it was ridiculous to watch. Because if you keep missing over and over and over again, why in the world would you keep shooting it instead of passing it off to your teammates? This dude posted up 15 times for a 3 and made 1 of them out of all of those. That percentage is awful. And that's what I don't understand is the fact that he kept shooting. And this wasn't just an issue in the Oregon game, mind you. This was also the issue in the national championship game against Gonzaga. And that game was terrible. I don't care what anybody says. The last 10 minutes of that game were so hard to watch up until like a minute left, because I don't know what these refs were doing. I don't know if there was some incentive in their contract where if they called fouls so early in the game then they get an incentive or something, but this game was ridiculous when it came to fouls. And I apologize, but I'm about to go on a bit of a rant with all of this, and I've kind of already gone on a rant with Barry, but this game was so hard to watch because of the fact that refs were calling fouls just because the teams were playing physical, and they're actually fighting for it because both teams wanted it. Both teams wanted to win so badly. So they're playing good physical basketball. This stuff that's fun to watch because you can tell how invested both teams are in winning. And I like to watch that. I like to watch games where it's physical and you see them fighting for every possession, every shot, every rebound, every steal, everything. But that wasn't possible in this game because you had like 3 or 4 star players on both sides, on both Gonzaga and North Carolina, with 3 or 4 fouls. We were going to the foul line with every reach-in foul or any foul in general. We were already in the bonus at the 10-minute mark of the second half. Yes, I understand if you're at that point with 2 minutes, that's still awful, or maybe at 1 minute in the game, that's when you understand people start fouling out. The first guy fouled out at the 5-minute mark. When there was 5 minutes left in the game, the first person fouled out. And I think he ended up being the only one to foul out because then the refs realized, oh crap, it's going to be UNC's bench playing against Gonzaga's bench. Nobody wants to watch that. We want to watch the star players go at it, fight, give it their all, and have a great finish on the national stage. But instead, we had this match of, oh, the refs are going to call a foul on you just because you're fighting for the ball. The smallest thing you did would lead to a foul. Like, any, guarded shot, foul. Any reach-in trying for a steal, a foul. It doesn't even matter if you hit the guy. If there was physical contact at all that looked a little rough, they were calling fouls. And it was absolutely ridiculous because it took away the flow of the game and it took away the excitement of the game. And the reason it took away the excitement of the game was the fact that you can't get into a basketball game when you're spending so much time just watching free throws. I don't come to watch basketball to watch people shoot free throws back and forth. I come to watch physical play, crucial shots, good defense, good offense, good rebounds, everything. I like to see a competitive game. It's not a competitive game if this dude is standing at the line shooting shots over and over again. And there's one play in particular that really made me mad. And one of the players on Gonzaga, he's the Polish one, and he didn't have a good game, and that's basically contributed to why UNC won, but that's another discussion. And Barry, my favorite player, they both went for the ball, and they ran into each other. And because the refs, they feel like they're obligated to call something, it's not just, oh, they ran into each other, whatever, the ball went out on this, let's keep going. No. They called a foul at first, alright? And then they said that they needed to go and review it. This is the kicker. This is the kicker right here. They called a double flagrant foul. I'm not kidding. A double flagrant foul. And you might be asking, for what? What'd they call it on? I couldn't tell you, because there was no reason to call a foul. The players weren't mad at each other. They weren't intentionally running into each other. They both ran for the ball, and they were both fighting for it, so they ran into each other. Now, on what grounds is that a flagrant? So anyways, Gonzaga shoots its first shots. They have 2 free throw shots for this catastrophe, whatever they're calling. They knock them both down. My favorite player, the one who couldn't make a single shot and a single free throw at the end of the game against Oregon, misses both of his shots. again. And yeah, I understand that at the end of this game he got most outstanding player or whatever, but I really don't understand why. I like to compare this to that last game that Kobe Bryant played. Kobe Bryant's a fantastic player, whatever. One of the greatest of all time. Say what you want, I don't care. Won championships, that's great. It doesn't matter if you score 70 points in a game if your field goal shooting percentage is below 40%. And that's the truth. I don't care what way you look at it. Oh, well, he still scored 70 points. I could score 70 points if I'm throwing up 100 shots a game. I'm bound to make enough of them to score 70. And that was my problem with Barry, is that on TV they called him, even before the game was over, the key player to the game. I'm talking about Barry. I don't know if they're being nice to this kid because he hurt both ankles and they're swollen and whatever. I'm sorry, but hurting your ankles doesn't affect your free throw shot. That's mechanics in upper body. And there's no other way to look at that. And he missed both of those on the technical shot, alright? Late in the game, UNC has the ball. They're running it down the court. They have the lead. And I said, take your time and don't post up for a three. You're already up. There's no reason to. And this man tries and shoots a three. And guess what? He misses. He still only made like 6 shots in the entire game. He was like 6 for 17. And it's not even like they were good shots either where he was open. He was always defended, but he didn't trust his teammates enough. And that is something that is crucial to being a good leader. You have to trust your teammates, and you have to trust that if you hand them off the ball, they can make a play. But he didn't even give them the opportunity to. He thought he could just take the game. And they barely squeaked away with a win. And again, it was because of the defensive players, and it wasn't even because of him. UNC won. It was a good game. They made some very good plays down the stretch, and they made very good plays at the end of the game. They finished on a 9-2 run. They won because Gonzaga was going, and they tried to get a layup, and it was blocked. And there happened to be a UNC player, number 44. He was all the way down the court and dunked it, and at that point, you knew the game was over. UNC won because they were better defensively. But this game could have been so much more exciting. Heck, it might have even had a different outlook. Because just like the fans can't get into the game when all you're watching is free throws, the players can't either. This game would have been so much better if we got to see two teams who were physical going at it, and you just knew it was just pure talent and a pure want to win the game. But that's not what we saw. We saw a free throw shooting match. When there's still 10 minutes left in the game, we should not be in the bonus. I don't know. That's my personal opinion. There was one other thing that happened in the game where Gonzaga tried to shoot it, and the dude just had a bad shot, and he airballed it, and then it went out of bounds. And then the refs convinced themselves that the ball was tipped, so it was still Gonzaga's ball. You go back and look at the replay, and UNC never touched the ball. It was just a bad shot. But they didn't even review it. Because the original call was air ball, UNC ball. And then the other ref was like, no. It was tipped Gonzaga ball. And then they just went, oh, alright. And then they gave it to Gonzaga. No review or anything. They stopped play so many times to go and review things. But one of the times that they actually should have stopped it, they didn't. Personally, I don't think these refs should ever ref again. Not on a stage like this. Because as a fan of watching basketball, and as a fan of watching good games, and for all the people who went and watched this game because they wanted to see two teams going at it and see the talent being shown off, that's not what happened. It was just irritating, and it took a lot of the fun out of it. And that was the last college basketball game of the year. We don't get that for like another, 6 months? I don't know. It really irked me because I come to these games because I want to watch, and I want to be excited, and I want to get into it. But it takes a lot of the fun out of it when this is going on, and this shouldn't be a problem. I've seen so many games that were way more physical than this, and half the fouls were called. You know, I understand that if it's a legitimate foul, then it's a foul. But there's a difference between a foul and playing hard. And I think that that line needs to be very distinctive because it was not in this game. And honestly, it ruined the experience for me. Alright, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to talk about the NBA next. And then later, we're going to talk about the NFL with Tony Romo. So, I'll catch you guys in a second. Alright, and we're back. Okay, so, there's been a lot of things in the NBA going on. I have 3 things in my notes, but I might touch on another one as well, because there's something else I want to talk about, just being a fan of the Denver Nuggets. Hopefully this segment won't be as long. I doubt it will be. The last one was just long because, you know, I had to rant about that. Alright, so, in the NBA, the big question right now is, what the heck is happening to the Cavaliers? You know, they're always the favorites, blah, blah, blah. And lately, they've been falling apart. They're not even leading the Eastern Conference anymore. The Celtics are. Last time I checked. That might have changed. I don't think so. And I think it comes down to a couple things. The moral of the story is that even if you get a bunch of talented people on a team, that doesn't mean jack squat. Ever. Because they have to be able to fit into the same system, they have to be able to work together, and they have to be able to give up time with the ball to give it to other star players. Who's in the spotlight right now in the league? LeBron James? Not really. The only reason LeBron is in the spotlight is because he's been resting. And the star players have been resting in key games. And the Cavaliers and the Warriors are guilty for this, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You might have your own stance on this, but my stance on it is a player should not rest during the NBA season. And I think Kobe's argument against this, when Kobe Bryant went and talked about this on a show, was, you know, he's earned that right because of the championships that he's played. Okay, my feeling on this is that, one, I agree with the argument that you should not be eligible for an MVP if you don't even play in all the games. I feel like, I don't know if this is the case already, but I feel like if you don't play in a game, it should count towards your average. Everything. Because if a star player chooses not to play in a game, I feel like that gives him an unfair advantage, specifically because of the fact that the NBA schedule is designed this way for a reason. It's designed to show off the stamina of teams who can play the entire season and then show off what team can continue to play hard and win. And I feel like that is extremely tainted because, yes, LeBron is a great player. Tired LeBron, not as good of a player. Rested LeBron, way better player. But I feel like that's a given. I feel like if you're going to rest, you're automatically going to be more healthy and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like in sports, a big part of it is that, you know, you're watching for these star players. One of the most anticipated matchups in the entire season, Cavaliers, Warriors, wasn't even exciting because it was the Cavaliers bench versus the Warriors bench. This game was televised nationally. Do you know how much those tickets had to have cost? And they came to watch the Darren Williams-led Cavaliers featuring Iman Shumpert against Andre Iguodala's Warriors. No Steph Curry, no Kyrie Irving, no LeBron James, no Klay Thompson, nothing. Like, seriously. I would be mad if I paid for a game, because you know that those tickets were expensive because of the teams involved. You already know how expensive those were. and then you show up to watch a bench play for both teams. It's the same argument I was bringing up with the UNC and Gonzaga game. They were heading in a direction where it was going to be the benches of both teams playing against each other, and that's ridiculous. That's not why we watch it. We watch it for those main people. So personally, I think the way you fix this is, for one, I think you should just straight up make it not allowed. Part of the NBA is how long the season is. You don't earn the right to just sit out and let your team fend for themselves. The best player in the league this year is hands down Russell Westbrook, and I'm going to get into that in a second. LeBron James doesn't even compare to James Harden and Westbrook this year, even when he has played. And that's saying something, because I'm pretty sure when he sits and rests and chooses not to play, that's not counting against his statistics, which I also think is unfair, because if you have a less amount of games played, then how can the stats be accurate? So first off, right off the bat, if they don't make it, not allowed in general, then I think that you should automatically be out of the race for MVP. Automatically. I don't know if you need to make it so if you rest more than 3 games or whatever, there has to be some way, but this is an actual problem. And the more I've thought about it, at first I was like, well, yeah, let him rest. But then I thought about it, and it's ridiculous. So I guess I'll get into the next thing, which is, Russell Westbrook and James Harden. The only game Harden has missed this year was like a couple days ago because he had the flu. It wasn't because, I'm sore, I need to take a game off. Yeah, I know it's against our biggest opponent, but I need rest. No. He shows up every game and kills it. Granted, I still think Russell Westbrook has been a better player this season due to the fact that he's getting triple doubles as easily as LeBron James is putting up 20 in a game. But they're still both better than the way LeBron is playing. And I feel like, age is going to start to be a factor. Whatever. Retire if you can't play the entire season. There's plenty of pure, raw talent in the league right now. They don't need you. I promise. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll come back. Alright, we are back from our short break, and I just wanted to finish up on the NBA discussion. There's one thing I wanted to talk about still, and that is the Denver Nuggets. Now, my problem here is that there are very talented players on the Nuggets right now. Jamal Murray is a great example of that. And for some reason, he's not playing. And I don't understand why, because he was in the Rising Stars Challenge, or whatever they called it, with the rookies and the sophomores, or the freshmen and the sophomores, whatever it was, whereas the first-year players versus the second-year players, or however they did that All-Star game, and he won MVP, and he was fantastic, and everybody was like, whoa, Jamal Murray, he's great. See, we have him, but he never plays. And this is what I don't understand, is because down the stretch, the Nuggets are fighting to get into the playoffs, okay? And at this rate, they're not going to make it. Because they lost 2 games that were absolutely crucial, one of them being to the Trailblazers, who currently own the 8th spot. My problem, though, is that why would you not take a risk? If he's playing good on that stage, who's to say he's not going to play good on this stage? Why do you have Jameer Nelson? Jameer freaking Nelson playing instead of Murray, who's a young player, energetic, good, and wants to be out there. Throw him out there with Gary Harris and Jokic and Chandler and, I don't know, Moutier. But those 5 on the court, see what happens. That's what their starting lineup should be. Barton should be the 6th man, or heck, start Barton over Harris. I don't care. They're not playing with the best team possible, and I don't know if it's because Murray is not as good as, everybody's hyping him up to be, or if Malone is taking on the stance that George Karl took on, where rookies don't play in their first year, which I also think is absolutely ridiculous, because how do you expect a player to, grow and develop if he spends the first year in the league sitting on the bench, playing the last 30 seconds of a game where you're either being blown out or you're blowing another team out? Just doesn't make sense to me. And as a Nuggets fan, it's hard to watch a game knowing that there are talented people sitting on the bench not getting play time and not being recognized when they should be. Do I think the Nuggets are going to make the playoffs? Probably not. Why? Because they're not winning the crucial games that they need to. Their biggest win this month was this last month, I guess, was against the Cavaliers, and that was huge. But as I talked about earlier, the Cavaliers are going downhill. So we weren't even playing against the best Cavaliers team. And there's probably a significant amount of reasons why the Cavaliers aren't doing well, but I don't know. I just feel like they're missing an opportunity. Granted, their team is still young, and they're probably going to be back at it next year, but the Nuggets need to win a championship. And they haven't. They haven't even made it to an NBA championship. Farthest they've been is in their own Western Conference. They made it to the Western Conference Finals, and they got destroyed by the Lakers. So hopefully they'll come back next year, or hopefully they'll make the playoffs this year, but it won't do anything. They'll still get destroyed by the way I've seen them get destroyed by other teams. I mean, all they have to do is play OKC or the Rockets or someone, and they'll get completely annihilated. And the problem is that, they have so many talented people who they're not using. I was watching the game against the Trailblazers, and Fareed's sitting on the bench at the end of the game when it was close. Like, why? Fareed's a good player. Jokic is a good player. Jokic is like the star of the team right now, but even he's not getting recognized that much. There's something missing. There's something essential missing, and I don't know why they're not trying new things and trying out a new team and giving these young kids playtime. Why stick with Gallinari when Gallinari is hurt all the time instead of developing a new player who has a bright future? It just doesn't make sense to me, but I just wanted to touch on that before we move into the last sports league that I wanted to talk about this week, and so that one is the NFL. So there was news that broke this morning. Tony Romo is retiring. He has decided that despite the fact that the Cowboys were going to release him today, he doesn't want to play for another NFL team. He left it all on the table with the Cowboys. He's done. Do I agree with that? No. Does that hurt other teams? Absolutely it does. So he has decided that apparently he's signing with CBS Sports, and he's going to be with Jim Nantz to commentate on the Super Bowl this next year. So congrats. You'll get to go to the Super Bowl. You won't be playing, but we'll still see you during the Super Bowl, so I guess technically you're going to make it. But I feel like you should have kept playing. I feel like Romo still had it left in him. So I guess the question now is, what's next for the Broncos and the Texans? Because both of them were really, they really wanted Romo. And I think the Broncos wanted him pretty badly. And I think that their game plan was, as soon as he got released, that they're going to sweep in and sign him and pull another Peyton Manning. Yes, I know. Tony Romo's nothing like Peyton Manning, but they thought that they were going to be able to take a veteran quarterback and help him win a Super Bowl. But I guess that's not going to happen now. So let's look at the Broncos roster. They're drafting at number 20 in the draft. There are not any good quarterbacks in this draft who are outstanding. There's no Andrew Luck in this draft, at least on the surface level. They're drafting at number 20. The decent quarterbacks, they'll probably be gone by then. On their roster, the Broncos have Paxton Lynch and Trevor Siemian. Hate to break it to you, but neither of these guys are the future of the Broncos. I'm sorry. They've both had good shining moments, but heck, Blaine Garrett has had shining moments. They've had more shining moments than Jared Goff, but that doesn't make them a star quarterback. It doesn't mean they can lead a team. And it's a shame because the Broncos could go back to the Super Bowl if they had a better quarterback. I feel like they could. They don't have the same defense they have when they won the Super Bowl because they lost too many crucial players who I don't think fans really realized how crucial they actually were to the team, like Malik Jackson. But regardless of that, the Broncos are screwed. They're actually screwed now. Heck, same with the Texans. The Texans drafted number 25. So even if there's another quarterback available and the Broncos are going to take him, so it doesn't matter. Texans on their drafter, they got Tom Savage and Brandon Weeden. I don't think Tom Savage has played any kind of game unless it was with the Texans when everyone else was hurt. And Brandon Weeden used to be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And he was awful. Garbage, trash. So both of these organizations are kind of really in a bad spot going into the draft. But you know what I think they should do? I don't know what the Texans should do. They should just take an L this year and move on and try again next year. But I have an idea for the Broncos, and I'm going to be called crazy for this, but I think it could actually work. There's a certain free agent on the market right now who happened to be a Denver Bronco at one point. Yep, that's right. Jay Cutler. I think they should sign him. I think that they should sign Jay Cutler back. Bring him back onto the team as a Bronco. See what happens. Would Cutler even want to come back? I don't know. McDaniels isn't there anymore. That's what made him mad. But hey, I think it could work. Cutler's not a great quarterback, but anyone's better than Paxton Lynch and Siemian. I'm sorry, but this big dream of them filling in the shoes of Peyton Manning, it's not going to happen. It's really not. There's plenty of good quarterbacks on the free agent market who haven't been signed, despite the fact that Josh McCown is being signed for $4 million or however many million to go and start. To start. Josh McCown. RG3, Jay Cutler, both of them should be signed. Are they the best? No. Are they better than Josh McCown? Absolutely. Will they both be playing next year? Cutler and RG3? I don't know. Probably. Will they be signed before the draft? I doubt it. I feel like they'll both be brought in for training camp after teams establish what they do in the draft. But either way, I think they deserve to be on an NFL team. They deserve to be on an NFL team before Brandon Weeden. They deserve to be on an NFL team before freaking Brock Osweiler. And I don't even know what's going on with the Browns. What the heck they were thinking. I mean, they've got the most money to spend because they don't spend anything on their players. So I guess it was great that they took on his contract. They need to trade him off again, but no team wants him. Bronco fans are too burned. So yes, they need a quarterback, but they don't want him back. And the Texans just got rid of him. You have both of the teams that were depending on Osweiler. And now a year later, they're still looking for a quarterback. Could Osweiler have succeeded in Denver? Possibly. I think he could have. Maybe. I mean, Kubiak left after this year anyway, so who knows? But I feel like he stood a better chance in Denver than he did going to the Texans because he was money hungry. That's what happens when you're money hungry. Karma hits you. And now you're on the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns don't even want you. So no. I think RG3 should sign with the Texans, and I think the Broncos should re-sign Jay Cutler and see what happens. If there's a decent quarterback available when number 20 runs around in the draft, the Broncos should take him. There's another free agent quarterback, but he's never going to play another game. That's my prediction, and I'll say it right now, and I'll say it again in a week. 2 weeks, however long. Colin Kaepernick will never play another game in the NFL. I'm a 49ers fan. I'm a huge 49ers fan. But after everything he did last season, after everything he's still doing, there's no way. There's a difference between drama and publicity. Having a bad record like Johnny Manziel or Jameis Winston is entirely different than kneeling during the anthem that plays for our nation. And that's not the only thing. I read a report that NFL teams are concerned because, he's on a vegan diet, and I don't know the scientific stuff behind that, but the fact that he hasn't been signed by now, and the fact that there's other quarterbacks who are less of a risk and won't be as much of a distraction that are still on the market, I feel like he's not going to get signed. I feel like throughout the NFL, there are very little people who supported him while he took his stand. And it'd be impossible for him to win over a locker room. I mean, he's not a bad player. I think he's better than quite a few quarterbacks in the league. I think he's probably in the top 10 when he's actually on his game. But I don't think it matters. He ruined his career already. And he's doing all these activist movements, and I'm not going to get into all of that because that's not really for here, but I think he's done. One last topic before I close things out. I just wanted to talk real briefly about this thing that's bothering me, and it's the fact of the gap that exists in between the NFL Combine and the NFL Draft. I think the Combine is an alright idea, in certain things, but a lot of these players have a pro day anyways, and most of them perform better at the pro day because they have more time to prepare. And my problem is that there's such a big gap in between the draft and the Combine that all of these players are getting overanalyzed on every little thing. I heard that Deshaun Watson, who played for Clemson, I'm a big fan of him. I'm actually hoping the Niners draft him. I doubt it, but I can hope. Analysts think that he's not going to make it in the NFL because he can't throw a 65-mile-an-hour football. Because apparently there's something in the Combine where they throw it and they clock the speed, kind of like in baseball with a pitch. Might I remind you that there are other good pitchers in the MLB who don't have to throw 100 miles an hour to be good? There's only one I can think of, and that's Aroldis Chapman. And he's known for it. But in the NFL, you never hear, oh yeah, he throws the fastest football in the NFL. And that's something that can be worked on. It's just arm strength. Built up a little bit more muscle. It could happen. It's not like it's something that you can either do or don't. Something that you can either do or not do is intelligence, knowing the game, knowing how to get out of a situation, Quick thinking. That's something that can't be taught. That's just either there or it's not. And that's not the problem with Watson. The problem is that they're overanalyzing whether or not he can make it because of how fast he throws the football. And that is ridiculous. Like, come on now. And with Watson specifically, he has showed up on every major stage. He played in 2 national championships in the last 2 years. And he showed up to both. He wasn't the reason Clemson lost 2 years ago. He contributed to the fact that Clemson won this last year, though. On the biggest stages, he shows up. Doesn't get nervous. Nerves don't get to him. No. He shows up. So a team should take a chance on him. I really hope that team is the Niners. We need a quarterback. We signed... Who did we sign? Charles Barkley and... I don't even know the other guy's name. 2 backups. From teams last year. We signed them. Oh, yeah. We signed... what's his name? Brian Hoyer. Signed Brian Hoyer and Charles Barkley. That's just as bad as Paxton Lynch and Trevor Siemian. Not as bad as Tom Savage and Brandon Weeden, because both of those should be like water boys, but I don't know. I'm hoping the Niners take Watson. Will they? Probably not. They can always disappoint me, because I always want them to draft a new quarterback, but they don't. But I just want to talk about the draft for a second and that gap, because it's too long. They overanalyze everything. Saying that a running back like, apparently, Christian McCaffrey, you know, who I know that a lot of people in Colorado want him to go to Denver, they're saying that he can't play and he won't make it because of his high jump. His high jump wasn't high enough. I'm sorry, but I forgot the last time that running backs only jumped over people. This isn't the NBA. There is no dunking, unless you're celebrating and you're dunking on a goalpost, but there's other celebrations, I promise. And another thing, apparently the Niners are interested in Christian McCaffrey, and here's my little note to the Niners. You don't need him. You really don't. The Broncos could use a good running back. I think a quarterback is more of a priority right now, because there are always plenty of running backs who are free agents, who are decent. But a quarterback, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a leader. Niners, you don't need Christian McCaffrey. Yes, he's cool and he's coming out of college, but it's like buying a new shiny car every single year that a new one comes out. We already have Carlos Hyde. We don't need another running back. Alright, I think I've talked long enough this week. This has been the first episode of hopefully many of a Sportscast with me. I don't know if I'm going to upload these weekly or what, but if you guys have any suggestions or topics you want me to cover in the future, make sure to comment them down below. If you like this video, please make sure to leave a like, and if you haven't subscribed, also do that. Let me know what you guys think, you know, those likes and the subscriptions and stuff, they really help me out. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the continued support. This has been Joey. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.